The following program is video supplemental instruction. VSI is brought to you by the Teaching Center, UF's Learning Support Center, www.teachingcenter.ufl.edu.
Welcome. This is the diagramming practice. In this lesson, we're going to go over actually setting up your diagrams for your logic games. This is one of the most important steps of the logic games because if you don't set up your diagram right, it's going to be very hard to figure out the questions themselves and how to attack the questions. So I have two practice questions here, and the PDFs are available under this video. So I'm going to assume you guys have them. You can print them out, you can look at them and go along, or you can try to do them and yourselves and then check your answers. There's no for a lot of these there's an obvious best way to do them, but for some of them there's really no one right way to do them. So if yours is a little different but it works for you better, you get it better, you understand it better, then by all means. I'm always of the opinion that whatever works for the individual is the most important thing to factor in, you know, in respect with things like this. It's more important to have something that you can understand as opposed to trying to conform to any one general rule. So we're going to go over the first one first. Okay, so the first one reads, a personal trainer will have 5 training sessions on Friday with Alex, Brent, Carlos, Denise, and Emily. Each session will last exactly 1 hour, and 1 hour will be reserved for lunch. The first session will begin at 8 a.m., and the last session will begin at 1 p.m. So the first thing you have to do is ask yourself, what does the question want you to figure out? What is the question asking you to do? The question wants to know, where are these people going to be in terms of time? What times are these people going to be, what times are they going to be in training with the personal trainer? So if the people are the ones that are going to be moving around, and the time is going to be your independent variable, that's what doesn't change. Your time is what's going to go up top as part of your diagram. So if your time is on your diagram, then obviously your people are going to be your elements. And whenever you write your elements down, you want to make it as easy on you as possible. So you don't write the whole name. You always write the first letter. LSAT will never give you 2 names that begin with the first letter. They'll never give you 2 elements that begin with the first letter. So they always want to make it as easy on you as possible in that regard, so you don't have to worry about that. So it's Alex, Brent, Carlos, Denise, and Emily. You also have another element that isn't necessarily a name, but is an element nonetheless, because you have 6 time slots and you have 5 people. But it says that 1 hour is going to be reserved for lunch. So lunch is technically another element. And that's pretty much it. That's how you set up this specific game. This is a very easy game. It's meant for you to kind of get used to it and familiarize yourself with how to do it. They get a little more complicated, but that's pretty much how it's done. Now we'll move on to the next one. So practice problem 2 reads, an education convention director is selecting speakers to give speeches on various topics. He will appoint each speaker, Francis, Gary, Hank, and Jessica, to give exactly 2 speeches. The speeches will be scheduled in the following order: art, English, history, math, law, politics, science, and psychology. So this one you can really set it up 2 different ways. You can either have your speakers up top, or you can have your speeches up top. And the way I would attack this one is I would put the speeches up top, because if you put your speakers up top, you're going to have 2 elements for every column. You're going to have essentially a grouping problem, and when you don't, it doesn't necessarily have to be that complex, because each speaker has to give 2 speeches. So if you put your speakers up top, you're going to have 2 speeches per speaker. If you put all your speeches up top, then you're going to only have 1 element per speech. It makes it a little easier on yourself. A lot of times you can't control that, but in a case that you can, you want to make it as easy on yourself as possible. So it's art, English, history, math, law, politics, science, and psychology. Now your elements are obviously going to be your people. So your people are Francis, Gary, Hank, and Jessica. However, you're going to have 2 elements. You're going to have double elements. In other words, you have 8 speeches and 4 people, but each person is going to give 2 speeches. So it's a lot easier to remember that, and it's a lot easier on you to keep track of your elements if you double them up, because you technically are going to have 8 elements, even though they're repeats of each other. It makes it easier to keep track of, makes it easier to remember that you're going to have 2 of each on the board for any given setup. So this is pretty much how you would set that up. And that concludes the diagramming practice lesson. If you have any questions, you can email us at lsat180uf@gmail.com. Again, that's lsat180uf@gmail.com.
The Teaching Center, UF's Learning Support Center, www.teachingcenter.ufl.edu.